Hello, this is Introduction to Drone Masks. Drone Mask is a huge tool for coloring your drone shows in Drone Show Studio. Because this is such a big tool with so many options, this is an introduction. And in this tutorial, we will look at how to make a simple drone mask with the first mode that is just a solid color. Just to make a simple example, you will need some drones. So we have grid of drones here. You need also volume or shape that is going to be your mask. The simplest way is to make a default cube. Let's bring it here, scale it. To make sure everything goes right, we can apply scale. It's not necessary, but I like to do that. The first thing you will do is set this mesh. So let's go into solid mode. Set this mesh as mask. When you do that, it creates a mask object and this shape becomes transparent. The actual faces still exist, and for masks, do not delete faces. They are necessary for masks to function properly. In the preview, you will not see them, so which is nice because you want to see your drones. After you have your mask, drones are not colored yet because you need to assign drones to the setup. And first, you actually need to make that setup. So here in the mask setups, you just click plus, you select your drones and you assign them. Once they are assigned, nothing yet happens. That's because you need to assign your mask also to this setup. So you go into layers for masks, you add this cube. If you have multiple masks, you will have a drop down here and you will be able to choose whatever mask you want to add. Once you add it, now you can see that drones are actually being colored. You can change, of course, the color of the drones. You can use your mask, you can animate it, you can even parent it to empties. After you have animated the mask, you can bake this setup. So all these drones will actually have this color in keyframes. Because currently you can see I'm moving this mask around, let's say we'll go to frame 60, I'm moving this mask, but here we only see material preview, the white keyframe that is just a default keyframe you get when you spawn drones. To get these keyframes on your drones, you need to go down below here and bake active setup. This will bring up bake emissions animation panel, which just prompts you from what frame to what frame you want to bake your setup. We will not yet bake it. I just need to explain some more settings, which is, for example, we have Falloff depth. When you scale your mask, drones are being interpolated between what's the color behind the mask, so in this case just a white keyframe that we have, but it could be as well a different mask, and what is the mask's color. You can change how much interpolates, how much it has to be inside of it to actually achieve this mask's color. So if we set this to a higher amount, so like 10 meters, you can see that it doesn't even completely get this color in the center because 10 meters is more probably than this mask's radius. So once you scale it, you can see that it starts to pick up that color. The same way you can bring it down, and this will create very sharp transitions. You can see if I move my mask with the Falloff depth of basically 1 millimeter, I guess, then it's very jittery. Therefore, it depends on what effect you want to get, but if you want smoother transition, you bring this up a bit, and it also depends on how quickly are you animating the mask, because let's, for example, create a keyframe at 0, then go to frame 70, move it by X, and add keyframe here. So if we preview that, so it is somewhat interpolating, and the change of color isn't that sudden. Of course, you can even make it smoother by increasing the depth. However, if you bring these keyframes much closer, you can see that it's going to be much more jittery because the mask itself moves quicker, so it faster changes the color. Well, the easiest way to use masks is just for blocking out some colors. I have an example here. Here we actually have something that will be discussed in the next video, which is you can make projections using your masks. However, in this projection, if you notice, we have these dollar signs that are not part of the projection, but part of the visual. If we, for example, disable these are pre-made them for masks. It's just extruded the same money symbols. You can see that everything behind is still lit, and it's harder to perceive these money symbols because everything behind is white, and white is a strong color. Usually is perceived on LEDs much brighter than any other color. So it will be in the end quite hard to understand these money symbols. And it's just nicer if whatever in the background doesn't interfere with our foreground elements. Therefore, I created these shapes, volumes, and it's important to have closed volumes. So if now go to also our masks, let's create a setup and let's go like this and select everything in this projection and assign these drones. And actually we don't need this plane, it was for projection, but the projection is baked now. So if we check keyframes, you can see that there are baked frames for this projection. So after we have added drones, we can just make multiple masks, which are copies, by the way, to masks and last shape, and then we can just add them all these 4 masks to our setup. Okay, now I want to change all of their colors to black, just to black out the color of the background. Okay. One thing, yeah. So one problem here is these are actually about 2 meters wide, and our depth is also 2 meters wide. Therefore, nothing much gets blocked, which means we will have to either scale the masks or make this distance much smaller. And as you can see, when I make this distance much smaller, the background gets blocked out. And now you can see that the background is getting blocked. Might be a bit hard to see. So see, from the angle, it's still not blocked because it's directly horizontal. So let's go actually to right, and if you go to right, then you can see that inside the mesh, so if you watch from perpendicularly, you can see that nothing behind it actually illuminated by white, which is what we wanted. Of course, for the show, you probably will need to rotate this whole visual so it faces people. And additionally, you can scale these masks a bit bigger, so even little changes in angle will be blocked because the projection, this mask will be bigger. And let's just try to do that. I probably need to change my origin to geometry, so it might be a bit too much, although maybe no. But you can see, yeah, if you just scale it, it will block more of the background. We can make actually even more masks here, and I think I don't want to see these symbols, up top. I want to only see them when they're entering this visual projection cube. So what can I do for this is it will demonstrate another feature, which is you can invert the masks. And for this I will actually need another setup, because I will need to add these drones instead of the projection drones. So let's just select by color, add drones to the second setup. It will say efficiency note, because apparently I think I didn't change the material. Emission material by default is less efficient because it assigns a unique material to every drone. Yeah, even if you have emission material, it's still going to work. So we can just continue with that, and it might be a bit less, yeah, so not as quick. And in this case, we actually do need a cube, however, not the old one. I didn't set it as mask yet. So let's set, this is cube 002, and let's add this cube 002 to our setup. And now, if we just turn this black, then we will get not the effect that we want. Let's see, you can see that it's actually blocking out drones that are inside. But what we want to do, we want to block color from drones that are outside our cube. So we could, of course, add a more complex mesh that would go around, encapsulate the volume around the cube. However, it's just easier to use invert. And invert, you can go here in projection mapping. It might change this place. It will most likely go up somewhere here. And now you can see that everything outside gets blocked. So we have two setups. One is blocking light behind. So let's go right. One is blocking what is outside, and let's put it to something like 8 meters. So it's fading in. And the other thing is blocking directly what's behind the color sides. And we have actually scaled one of these meshes. Yeah. Once you hide the mesh, the preview will also stop. So to actually save this on drones, again, what we need to go is go bake and bake this setup. We will actually, for this, we would need to bake both. So it might be, sometimes maybe with intricate setups, you might need to check what setup you need to bake first. I do have some additional features to show. It would be coverage setting, in which what it does, increase the seed itself, it doesn't change much, but if you just lower the coverage percentage, you can see that not all of the masks drones will inherit the mask's color. This is just a random distribution, basically, and depending on the percentage, you will have some drones. So let's say 50% of drones colored and 50 not colored. And the seed evolution, it just changes random distribution. Last few things about masks. So you have a 3D visual, for example. Let's create multiple masks. So let's set this as mask, and let's take something more, more interesting like cone and cylinder. So let's set all of these as masks. Let's add our drones. Then add our masks. So we have a cone. I believe, yeah, it's cube 01 and cylinder. Now you can see all of them are coloring just the portions that they intersect. Let's give them different colors. And you have also within your masks a layer hierarchy. In this case, you can see that cube is on top of cylinder, but the cone is on top of everything. So we can color with the cone any drone in our mesh. And what you can do is also add mix blends. So if we say add blend on the cylinder, or rather we should actually add blend on cube. So we'll do that as well. And we can see, because the cylinder involves this section where we have our cube and it's set to add, then these two colors get blended. You can also control opacity of the mask. So you actually need to change your mask here to affect the properties. I think for the introduction, we have covered the basis of drone masks, and in next videos I will show you camera overlay and parent UV projection and generate 3D as well.